McDonald's, Uber, J&J, all go on a marketing officer hiatus. Gen Z makes social. In marketing, turns out, it's all about the data, not the Benjamins. I'm Nick Williams, your host of A Case of the Mondays. Let's get right into this weekend, guys. Oh man, okay. If you guys aren't watching the video podcast, you just happen to be listening, you just missed some horrible dance moves. But okay, let's get right into it, guys. And so those are the three main stories. We're going to jump straight into this story talking about the marketing officers and some of the recent exits. So I'm going to pop it up on screen per usual. And if you don't know the drill, this is a video podcast. I'm actually going to be, because we're making a lot more of the clips, our content team, so it'll have its own YouTube. Obviously, this podcast is going to be up on Libsyn, obviously, with its own channel, which is probably where you're listening. But it'll have its own YouTube channel with its own clips. So that way, you know exactly what you get when you go over there. So check it out on YouTube. Check it out on the website, which is now launched. Or just keep checking it out on podcast. But either way, I just want to keep giving you guys value. So the links will be in the description if you're checking out the video link. If you're just listening, go ahead and get it there. But we're going to pull up the article, and it's actually an article from, let's see here, CNBC, I believe. Yeah, so this is an article from CNBC, and it covers three major corporate exits. So let's pull up here. So yeah, we got some, make sure you can see it there. Yep, so okay, so CNBC talks about this, and it's initially reported by Adage. So what the article starts off by saying, according to industry publication Adage, a new global CMO at McDonald's will not be named. However, two executives have been promoted. Bob, not going to butcher his last name, Rubzinski, yeah, okay, that wasn't that hard, has become Senior Vice President, Marketing Technology, and Colin Mitchell takes on the title of Senior Vice President, Global Marketing. So this is actually kind of a theme here, and we'll get to, they talk about Uber and Johnson & Johnson take on these titles of Senior Vice President, but you've noticed, and I've actually seen this in a couple different firms, but not blue chip firms like you see here. This is pretty major, but they keep promoting to this role of Senior Vice President. Now it could be a bit of an equity play. There's a lot of things. It could be political. These are big companies, right? So depending on the hierarchy and how the actual, the corporation structured, Senior Vice President could mean something different. It's not just on paper title. It could mean something relative to maybe like a profit share. Like I said, I don't know how that works there, but I think it's beyond just those simple things. I think it's beyond the optics and the aesthetics. I think there's actually something else at play in terms of a strategy that's not just, these companies, obviously. Again, I'm not going to, I'd say allegedly, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I know for sure when I say things like that. I feel like I always need to kind of caveat it with that. But when you read these stories, and I'm just reading the tea leaves with you and trying to report back what I know and what I've seen and how you can relate this to your business, but what I think you take from this, right? Like, these are big companies. What I think you take from this is about the fact that, look, marketing as a quote unquote, I'm air quoting here with my hands, it's no longer, it doesn't mean anything in a vacuum anymore. And I think there's a reason for that. And it's a lot of people are missing this. And I'm telling you right now, you adapt or die, right? Like, you have to get with the program. But the really interesting one here is, let's go over to it. So it's that first one that's the most interesting. So let me actually get to the rest of the article, which is about the Johnson & Johnson. So meanwhile, this as reported by CNBC. Meanwhile, the CMO role at Johnson & Johnson was also removed last month in a reshuffle that streamlines priorities, quotes, according to Johnson & Johnson. Allison Lewis, who held the role for 5 years, will not be directly replaced, a spokesperson told industry website The Drum. CMO duties will be split between other leaders in the company. It goes on to say the changing role of marketing is reflective of the huge variety of new ways to advertise to and communicate with consumers. So that switch up to marketing, was a senior vice president of marketing. Let me get the actual title right. Wow, why can't I find this? It's Senior of Global Marketing Technology. Wow, sorry guys. So you've got marketing technology. Now, hearing that even on its face, that is something a little bit more specific when you compare that to something like quote unquote the chief marketing officer. But I think again, that's not just optics, and I think there's a very specific play in mind. And so as you think about your marketing, and I'll walk you kind of through my thinking on this and why I think it matters to you, and why I think if you get ahead of this, this is something that could be hugely favorable to you, and you could start to hit these trends. Because I think what people don't see, AI might not be in your scope right now. It's 2019. I would say that artificial intelligence, VR is going to start to be a big play. I've already started to use blockchain. Like, how do you work it for psychographic segmentation? That's something we're doing, and trying to predict behavior by basically building out personalities. There's a lot of things that are on the horizon that, if you're not looking at those things, you're either, just kind of hanging on in the present like everyone else, or you're getting left behind. So this move by some of these big companies, a move to like a marketing technology, a senior vice president of marketing technology, is going to dilute a little bit this role, this idea that there's a marketing officer that's just hanging out. And I think that's important because we have to start to learn how to talk to the consumer. And moving someone to like a role like a marketing technology is just highlighting and just confirming the fact that technology is playing a bigger and bigger role in your marketing. If you're making ads, if you're shooting, if you're working with talent and you're putting out the prototypical stuff that you've always done, I'm telling you, you're late. You're gonna get left. And if you're not open to changing, it's done for. And it doesn't really matter how big your company is, you're gonna get disrupted. I mean, look at all, you can sit here and name them. You could sit here and name the Kodaks, the Blockbusters, all these places, the Radio Shacks, the Toys R Us. If you don't adapt, you'll die. It doesn't matter how big you are. Technology is going to be the theme today. And that is the hand that can be the source that sprouts your growth, or it can be the hand that puts you down. But you have to get with the program. And so you look at these big companies doing things like this, and it should start to pave the way for you to say, okay, maybe this is something I'll start to consider. And this is something we believe in here at DeepBridge a fair amount. So one thing that's super important is, how are you talking to your consumers? And technology should be your advocate to make or to tell a more eloquent story. And so if you're out, for instance, and you could use this for targeting, segmentation, like I said, you could do this in a lot of different ways, but just at its most basic form, let's use a very simple example. If you are trying to convince someone to buy something, to learn something, to read something, to click something, it doesn't matter the scale of your business, this is going to be for everyone. If you're trying to persuade someone to do something, your ability to persuade someone and convince someone to do something is tied directly and is directly connected to how well you know that person. Now, if you don't think I'm right about that, and we've talked about this before, if you took your ideal customer and I told you 10 different data points that were relevant, and I put that over to the side, or I gave that to one of your marketing directors, I took marketing director B or number 2 or whatever and told them nothing, and I said, hey, go convince that person. Who do you think is going to do a better job? Obviously the person with more data. And the marketing technology you invest your time, resources, energy, and your just intellectual capacity, your team, to actually go pursue those things, that's the group that's going to win. That's the brand that's going to win. When I was thinking about this and thinking through the insights, I kept going back to Zuckerberg in the early days of Facebook. And even as they grew, his model was always move fast and break things. And I think that's true for a lot of people. And Facebook still says that today. I've talked to Facebook about certain projects, like, and some of the things they're doing. And that's what they're trying to do, is move fast. Move fast. And if they fail, learn faster. But you have to start to embrace these technological features. Now, like I said, one of the things that I push a lot, because I think it's got a lot of application, is your email marketing. And not just email marketing. I think it has everything to do with your sequencing. Your email segmentation is a big thing here. But, because I think email marketing is We're going to start going closer and closer that route. People say email is dead. No, it's not. I'll let you think that, and that's great because that's more for us. And if you're a client of ours, that's great too because it's more for you. Let your competition think email is dead. It's just hard. It's the same people. The people who say that are the same people who say attention spans are lower. No, they're not. You're just not interesting. If I pull out my phone, it's because you're not fun. It's not 19, whatever, 60. I can go through a tennis ball. I can pull my phone up, right, and find anything I want. Why would I not do that if you're not fun to listen to? So people, if conversion rates are going down because the marketplace sure is getting more crowded when you think of your ads. But it's also, at the same time, it's because there's a lot of people who aren't adopting, who aren't even starting the learning curve, who aren't adopting the technology to grease the wheels, to tell the more eloquent story, to increase the conversion rates, the engagement rates, the click-through rates. How are you going to convince people to buy your stuff if you can't even get their attention? How are you going to get their attention if you can't find the right people that matter for your brand, product, information, XYZ? Investing in marketing technology is the key to unlocking that. And like I said, you've got these companies who are doing it. And people, I've worked at these big companies. I've worked at the P&Gs. I've worked at the JP Morgans. They're exactly what you think. They're giant, giant companies. And they move slower than smaller companies. If you're someone like at DeepBridge, we have less than 10 people on staff. We have just under 10 people. I'm going to be way faster than anyone else in my competition and anyone else if I'm punching above my weight and I'm going after a contract with say like a P&G, the thing I'm going to beat them on is speed. There's no way in hell because I don't have to confer with anyone. The buck stops with me. And if any of the other consultants need me, they'll call me. And if they need to, put out a contract or scope or something, I'm one phone call away. We're done within an hour. Right. So if these big players are moving faster than you got a problem. You got a problem. So as you're thinking about, okay, well, Nick, what's the application here, right? How do I do this? Well, start with one thing. Like I said, I always start with email marketing. I think it's, as we start to dilute communication, which we are. Think about it. We're giving people more and more access to Facebook ads. We're invading. I call it, these are no longer ads. You're disrupting someone's day. You're interrupting is what I'd like to call it. Stop interrupting and start promoting. And I think there's a difference. Telling stories, making things engaging. As we've increased anyone's ability to do this, people have gotten sloppy and they haven't, taken best practices. One thing I'm going to try not to rant about right now, which I will a little bit because that's the point of this podcast is long form content. But I'm just going to, if you're someone who's connecting with me on LinkedIn and you're going to hear this, then okay, well, that kind of ruins it. But I get these, and if you're anything like me, if you're a consultant out there or something, you get these too. And I cannot stand it. And I'm sick of it. And so much so that I'm going to make a study of it. So people are sending me, it's not just me, obviously. Like people are sending everyone these automated emails, and they're so obvious, right? They're so obvious. And I know how to do this. Like you can do it in 10 different ways. You can go use Sales Navigator, use Meet Leonard, and you can connect them. There's 10 different programs out there. Obviously, LinkedIn looks for them, but they're not catching everything. LinkedIn's so slow to the game when it comes to finding these bots and algorithms. Unlike an Instagram, who constantly is crushing people who are engaging and stuff like that. But I'm constantly getting these like, hey, Nick, interested in blah, blah, blah. I'm already a little bit more cynical, and I think if you're reaching out to me, taking my time, you better come correct. You better know what you're talking about because my time is valuable, as is yours. I wouldn't reach out to anyone I'm not really interested in. I wouldn't try to work with someone that I didn't actually do my research, and it just shows it's bush league, and you're not good at your job. There's a way to do automation and sequencing, obviously, and segmentation. That's exactly what we're trying to help people do. That's exactly why we have the course. That's exactly why we consult in that area. I'm not saying, I'm not poo-pooing that. I am saying we've given everyone the tools to do this, but then that's it. And so, no, we're not pushing, we're not learning with it. We're not getting better. And so every time someone sends me that, now I'm just asking them, what are your response rates? Because I'm trying to run a counter study. Like if you're going to take my time, I'm going to ask you a question back. Like obviously, if a CPA reaches out to me, you're just hitting a bunch of people and I happen to fall in the bucket. It's obvious. Your messaging is clear. It's obviously you didn't do any research in me, saying things like, oh, it's glad to connect. And if you get those messages and you're not putting two and two together, I'm going to go ahead and ruin your day, because a lot of these messages that appear to be sent to you, they're not. They're probably not. And if it says your name, it's very simple script. I actually believe you can go try it if you want. It's parentheses, %, underscore the name, and then %, parentheses. And if you put that in your script, that'll insert the first name, whatever they put on their profile. And it's obvious, right? Because if you go by a nickname and they call you like Nicholas, like if people call me Nicholas, it's like okay. But you can tell throughout, like I saw we're connected to those people. It's just automation. It's just a bot. But I've noticed that when I ask these people, hey, what are your rates? They don't actually respond, or they give me attitude. And it's like, you don't even actually know I'm asking you. I'm actually not trying to be difficult. I'm actually trying to learn. But it's interesting that the second you didn't get what you wanted, or the second that I wasn't, I was hip to your game and I didn't give you the answer you're looking for, most of them don't respond. So that should tell you a lot about what's wrong. And this misuse of technology has ruined the people who are doing this correctly. The blessing in disguise is it has opened an opportunity for people who are doing this correctly to convert. So I believe we're heavily in a thank you culture, and an authentic, genuine culture. And that's why, again, I don't care how many downloads this get. This is not for everyone. This is for the person who is specifically interested in this. If you are trying to work with a consultant, I'm not using the word agency, but if you're trying to grow your business and how are you going to hire someone if you don't know who they are? Not enough people get in front of the camera, probably because they don't know what they're talking about. And you can disagree with me, but bring the data, because if I'm talking about something, I can prove it, at least from my perspective. I'm open to any sort of analysis, but bring it. And I think that's a great conversation to have, right? But always talk to people who are willing to put themselves in front of the camera and etch their words in stone. But anyways, I told you I wasn't going to rant. That's a mini rant. But the point is, it's ruined how we communicate. It's ruined genuine connection. If I get a connection on LinkedIn, I'm assuming it's not real. So I have to pay attention. And if it's not obvious, I'll connect and I'll just wait. And the people who are honest are refreshing. And they're just like, hey, I for real didn't have any agenda. I just want to connect, and I love your content and I wanted to see more of it. So stuff like that it has ruined how we are able to connect with each other. And it's the same with your emails. Email marketing used to be insane 10 years ago. And now it's most people, like I said, think it's dead, but that's because they don't know how to sequence and they don't use technology to their benefit. So if you take one thing and you say, look, it's going to be email marketing. That's my favorite, again, because it's the most access. It's a one-to-one relationship you have with your customer. But I think if you take that and you start to segment your audience. So I'm actually going to draw up here behind me. If you're not watching, you can listen and I'll kind of describe it. But what you should be doing, let's say you have people on an email list, and one way to make this actionable and to start using technology, and this isn't necessarily technology, it's the idea of segmentation, which, if you understand this, can be input into technology very simply. So if you take an email, all you have to do is include some call to action within that email. So here's email 1. Again, if this lets me draw here. Great. Okay, so here's email 1. And within email 1, if you send an email to someone and they open it and your call to action is, hey, click here if you're interested in this, or it doesn't have to be that obvious or conspicuous, you could say, click here to check this out, and track that click. Again, if you're not working with an email, like we have thousands of people on our email list, but so in that specific situation, you have to have technology, because it's an inordinate amount of work to try to do that without some form of technology supporting you. So if let's just say you have 10 people on your email list, just for for shits and giggles. You have 10 people. You send, this is your email, and you say, hey, here's in this email, click here if you're interested in this. It's a download, it's a whatever, a PDF. And you can actually track who clicks it and opens it. So now this person just entered what I've been calling an arc. They've entered a new arc. So that's arc A. And this is these arcs are gonna be very, very unique and different. So arc A, this download had everything to do with one area of your product service information that's very different from your other. So again, insert whatever your business is, but take one specific part. That's the key here. Segmentation is all about customization and how deep you can go with the customer. It's all about forming as close to a one-to-one relationship as humanly possible. Technology in its purest form gets to the most authentic. It's basically trying to replicate human nature. Technology, if you can do that, then you're winning. That's the point of anything. Making an email automation bot that looks so much like a human. It's basically, the Turing test. That it's the Turing test of technology. Can your email pass for a human? And you're thinking to yourself, well, it has to know a little bit about me. Well, I'm showing you how to do it right now. Put something in that first email that says, hey, if you're interested in check out my podcast here. You don't have to, you can kind of hide the ball a little bit. If someone clicks about podcasts, what does that tell you? If someone clicks about podcasts, what that should tell you about the customer, the customer data will reveal that person's probably interested in a little bit more of a long form approach to content. That person's probably a little bit more sophisticated, just like anyone listening to this podcast. If you're still listening, congratulations. I personally, and I don't, I'm not patronizing. I personally would say that that's the kind of client I want to work with, because I don't have to explain a lot to you. And if I do, you're going to catch on. You're a little bit more of a sophisticated person who wants to hear more and understand more and be challenged and challenge back. So if you get that person that's listening to the podcast or downloading your podcast, they answer story arc A. And story arc A should be all about long form. Because guess what happens if you tell someone or talk to someone about long form content that doesn't want long form content? And this is going to be an episode we talk, by the way, all week we started this something called Drawing Conclusions. It's a very quick, a quick look at, I'll be basically drawing on the iPad like I am here in the background, and I do it on Instagram. So it'll be all about this idea of reusing your content in a way that touches people all along the funnel. So if you show long form content, getting back on course, taking the grapevine back. If you show someone long form content that doesn't want long form content and they want short form content, they're going to be immediately out. So a real life example of this is this podcast right here. Why we're making its own YouTube channel, like I said in the very beginning, is because when you make long form content that's this podcast will probably be closer to an hour, just like, making the rest of them. But I'm going to slice and dice the clips up to my favorite parts, and I'm going to basically this like rapid fire consumption where there's 5-minute clips here, 5-minute clips there, my favorite parts, my biggest parts of each episode. So episode 2, email segmentation, or episode 4, email segmentation, episode 4, marketing technology explanation, stuff like that. So it doesn't mean I'm going to break up all hour with, 10-minute clips, 6 a piece, 6 times 10, that's 60, that's an hour. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to take the juiciest, most fun parts. That way I can hit everyone, but I'm not doing extra work other than repurposing my content. So if you show someone long-form content that wants long-form content, they're in their heads going to go, how do they know? How do they know? That's awesome. But the topic, now that can get deeper and deeper and deeper. Then you're going to need some technology, like I said, to basically start grabbing what they're actually interested in. It's very easy to do, and it's exactly what I'm in the email marketing course we teach. And it's really awesome because we have things called like link triggers. So I can kind of throw something out there in an email that, like I said, I don't have to be direct, download this. I could just hyperlink to it. You don't have to click it. I'll just say, if you're interested, just really quick, we just put out this weekly newsletter, or we just put out this, I'm releasing tonight an awesome extension of the new Coke content that I made about the branding decision by Coke to put back out new Coke with the launch of Stranger Things. And it's basically a taste test. It's a fun video. It's a little bit different than normal, and I get to edit, basically. So it's a selfish move on my part, but I got to have a little fun, and I got my hands on a box of the new Coke, so I don't even know if they're selling anymore. But if you click that, I track that link. Let me actually see if I can, actually, no, I'm not. I'll make it another day. But anyone who clicks that is tracked, and I store their email, and then that way when I write a new email, they're already in Arc B. So if Arc B was short, Arc A was long, and then Arc C, they're just not sure yet. So this could be your messaging that goes on in perpetuity. So anytime, let's just go unlimited. So that's just like your baseline. So and it's really important to have an Arc C, which is where if someone doesn't get segmented, they just stay, because you don't want to lose someone. Like, essentially, don't introduce game theory. Don't introduce something like a zero-sum situation in which they've got a binary choice, and if they don't click it, they're out. Unless that makes sense for your sales cycle. But if I were to give someone an option for long form content and short form content, and they chose neither, they'd be out. Most people aren't actually ready to choose something. It takes a couple times. So if I keep giving you these call to actions in these emails using this marketing technology I'm talking about, I can whittle down exactly who you are and what you like after a few choices. So if I start with 10 and 5 actually go to the long form content, they go in that arc. So then I break them off. I have this whole email sequence that's delivered only to the Arc A people. You've got Arc B, and 2 of them go to Arc B, which is short form content. In the email, I have some sort of link trigger or say, hey, I produced, and I'll be really, not subtle, but I'll be, I'll not be so obvious about it. So I'll say, hey, I've got this 3-minute video, super quick 3-minute video, this checklist, this download. Go ahead and click here if you want that. And they clicked it. Okay, so you're interested in something that's a little bit more actionable, that's quicker, you can put it into play and just, plug and play and go. Now I've got 2 people in there, and then do the math. You've got 5 people at the top, 2 people in the short, you've got 3 people left over that are going back to the unlimited, calling it unlimited. So you just keep telling normal stories. The trick here is keep hitting them with both triggers, because these are unsegmented people. So if you have an email list with 3 people left, you don't know really what they want, a good way to do that is, number 1, send them multiple link trigger options that are all varied, because they're not going to click all of them. They'll probably click one of them, and that's the one they want. So just keep doing it. If they never click, that's why we trim our email list, because they're not going to be someone that's a profitable choice anyway, and you're wasting time, energy, and effort on someone that's not an ideal consumer. So cut them, get out of there, or just keep delivering it. And the second option is you can write a survey. You can say, hey, I'm just trying to learn a little bit more. Can you respond with some things you'd be interested in? And at that point, you could be a little bit more customized in your response, because you'd say, look, I noticed you didn't check out this or this, but you're staying on the email list. That I really appreciate that. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you make that choice? So I think that's a really good way to talk, and this is something that we do again in the email marketing course I talk about, but I think this is something that everyone can use, and it takes your marketing technology and what you use as your marketing outreach, your how you're closing your customers, getting to know them better, and how you are building your business. If you can do these things, then you're going to be moving on the right path. You are disrupting. You're a part of the disruption rather than a product of it. And so I always like to, if you've ever got a situation in which your consumers are wanting something, there's an opportunity. You've got to give the people exactly what they want.
You got to give the people what they want.
I'm testing out new memes for these, but that's my favorite. I love that. So you got to give the people what they want. You can't give them what they want if you don't know what they want, right? So that's just a very actionable example. Again, if you're listening, go check it out. But hopefully that made sense as I was walking you through it. And, just use that example, and you can scale it, you can morph it, change it, but the situation remains the same. Give someone link triggers, and that's a good way to start to segment people out. But jumping, basically going back 10,000 foot view, jumping up, what's really important here is to use technology to your advantage to understand more about your consumer, to increase your conversion, and to grow your bottom line. And that's what marketing automation, that's what marketing technology is meant to do. And that's why you see these big companies moving to more of these marketing technology roles. Even, Johnson & Johnson, what is Johnson & Johnson, McDonald's, Uber. Uber is not a surprise, but Johnson & Johnson, a little bit more of the consumer products world. McDonald's, just pure, flat out consumer insights like that. It's across the spectrum. It's not just, it's not pigeonholing these prototypical places that would be doing marketing technology like software companies. It's everyone. So you don't have an excuse anymore. But hopefully that made sense. Let's move on to let's talk about the GenZ article I was talking about, which is, let me pull it up here on screen, and then I'll also include it in the links. If you're listening, go ahead and check that out. But it's going to be a case of the Monday. I'm going to try to, I'll say that now because it's not created, but I will create it. It's actually Sunday night, really late Sunday night. So I'll create that for you guys. Go ahead and check it out. Case of the Mondays, or I'll put the links up somewhere. But let's see. Let's pull it up here on screen. The article is actually written by Marketing Tech News. So again, like I said, keeping with this theme of marketing technology. And I'm just going to read a little bit of an excerpt here. It says, social media usage continues to evolve at a rapid rate. And as Generation Z continues to flood into the working world, its application for both users and brands who wish to take advantage of it come into much sharper focus. That is the idea behind the first in a new series of reports from ZAC, a London-based creative agency which purports to create big brand ideas and engage under 30s, in its own words. The first paper explores the disparity between mainstream social networks and gaming communities and the lessons that can be learned from brands. Yes, for brands. So yes, the gaming community is actually a favorite place of mine to actually begin a lot of my upstream innovation and technology and understanding of consumer insights, because it's a culture in which they're so ingrained and so deep that the insights are so rich, and it's really hard to get such an engaged audience, especially such a valuable demographic. They're going to become, the bulk of the purchasing power here in the next 15 years. I can't remember what Zach calls them, affectionately known as, but basically the young 20s and the up and comers. So what I like most about this is because it's an extension of what we've talked about last week, but it's using technology to extend this idea of being authentic. And that was the name of the first podcast, which is Authenticity is Dead. It is, but you have the key to revival, and that's going to be customization, personalization. How close, like I said, the goal of technology is to replicate and recreate, pass this Turing test, this one-to-one connection. It's supposed to give you the scale and the reach that technology can provide, all with a human touch. Indistinguishable, in fact. So the thing to take from this, and I'll read one of the big takeaways as I was reading, was that about 40%, and they were, again, this is an interview of 1,020 somethings and sometimes younger, as reported by Zach, almost 40% use Facebook as a messaging platform only. And I think as you think about it, that's about right. And if that just, kind of breezes by you without being interesting, I think that's the point. Facebook, think about it, 5 years ago, that was the place to be. No longer, right? Facebook is, and I think when they bifurcated their messaging app from the social platform, I think they did that for good reason. I think they saw that coming. They read the tea leaves in their own, which is smart, right? But when they did that, it was basically a cue to say, okay, you've created an opportunity in an avenue in which the consumers are going to start to bifurcate your own service and say, okay, I'm only going to use messaging to talk to people. You have to download the separate app on your phone. Most people are using their phone it's a mobile first world now. Almost every website is mobile first. If you're a custom build in Java or HTML, or if you're on WordPress, you probably have a mobile first website like we do. So the thing to think about here is, I think Gen Z especially are leading the way, because when these social platforms hit, they are usually the early adopters. And if they're already going, look, there's no need. I don't use Facebook. And I think Cambridge Analytica kind of ruined that for a lot of people. But people are afraid of data harvesting, how their data is actually being used, because we don't have a lot of insight into that. So as you think about this article, and I'll leave the link, when you read it and you hear things like that, most people are using Facebook as just a messenger. What that should say to you is authenticity, the depth of your audience, how well someone knows you and how well you know them. That is the key here. And it doesn't mean that you can't do things at scale anymore. You can. You just got to get. It should be like. I should just make a graph for this, but and I'll draw it out and I'll talk it out as I'm drawing. But even as I do it on the fly, as you start to look and graph this, what you should be thinking about on your y-axis, you should have something like, if this is trust. And this is and you have your audience size in your x-axis. The more people you have in your audience, the more you're going to have this trust barrier. You've got a lot of people, because what the underlying metric here is at play is, at scale you lose customization, right? You can't say very specific things in the very nature of the definition of specific. You can't say very specific things to a lot of people. You're going head to head with trust, because the second something looks like it's not personalized for me, you lose my trust. So this barrier of trust increases. So on this graph, and if you're listening, as you go up in the upper right quadrant, you have to get smarter and smarter. Because if you don't, as the audience size increases, you have to find a way to break through the trust barrier. The easiest way to break through the trust barrier is to tell stories that matter to specific people. You've got to start to segment and bucket. That's why we talk about it so much. And technology allows you to do that. But the key, you can't. So the point is, you can do this at scale. That's not the issue, and that's not what I'm saying, that you can't do this. You absolutely can, but you've got to invest in the resources to do this correctly. But what it definitively, at least Zach, according to Zach's report, what it definitively should tell you is, people aren't, and that's why places like YouTube are doing so well. And I have a really fun actionable piece of something for you to go try, that I really do want you to try. I don't care who you are, I really do want you to try this. And if you think I'm full of shit, go try. Go look at mine. I do it myself. I'm not lying to you. This is something I try too. I've actually gotten hooked on it, and I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory, because I think that'll help it take hold. But people are walking away from these big social platforms as a way to be social, quote unquote. They're looking for something that's more genuine, authentic. That's why we make these video podcasts. I don't have to make these a video podcast. I don't have to. I do it because it lets people see me and hear me, and it's convenient for you, and I might as well do it. So what I want you to try to do, and do this, it doesn't matter if you're the CMO, doesn't matter if you're CEO, doesn't matter if you're the intern. And some of you probably already do this, but I want you to be more intentional about it. And I want you to note it, write it down, document it, and I want you to learn from it. And if possible, share it. So let's just say, and I have the data to prove it, let's just say you trusted me to say, okay, well, people are moving off Facebook if they came time to, say, buy a product. When they go to read a review, what they're going to do is probably go to a video review, because they want to see it. That's why do you think the unboxing videos are so popular? Because everything can be conceptualized when it's tangible, when I can watch you do it, when I see you're not full of shit, when I can, I feel like I know better, I see better. So I want you to try and go make your own YouTube. And I want you to try to just accept, and you don't have to go make a blog. I prefer a blog, but not everyone likes to write. Less people probably like to make videos, but it's just quicker and easier, and I don't want to give you something you don't have time to do. It is very easy to upload videos, though. That's the case. That's the truth. And going with the theme of authenticity, you don't need Final Cut Pro. You don't need Emotion. You don't need Premiere or anything like that, like I have. You can just upload video on your cell phone. I'm shooting right now, and I think it's 1280. That's a 4K camera that I don't want to shoot 4K on because it would take forever. It's giant, and it's unnecessary. It's an expensive microphone, but it's, I'm not worried about the quality. I'm not going to go back and scrub this and do morph cuts to cut out times when I stuttered or something, because that's not true. It's not genuine, and it's not authentic. So I want you to replicate the same thing. Pick a topic, pick a niche, and talk about it. And I don't care what it is. It could be about batteries. I have a bunch of channels. You can only use so many on a cell phone. I think it's 3 you can use with your connected to a cell phone. So I have to like call friends because I want to try other places. Because I got hooked, actually. There are people out there. There's an audience. There are gaps in the system in which people just they don't understand that people want answers. This isn't about when you switch your thinking from getting followers to solving problems. that's that's the field of dream. That's if you build it, they'll come. If you make a if you make an ad, a YouTube channel, anything, and you expect people to come, you're dead wrong. If they happen to come, then great, you answered problems. But what this exercise will do is to teach you how, and using your passion, it'll teach you from the ground up, starting with no brand equity, right? Because if you're listening to this, you either have a company or, you're working at a big company. You have the luxury of not knowing what it's like. Like at DeepBridge, that didn't exist until I, filed for it, the trademark, and worked with the government and got its own, tax records and its tax ID. Like, that didn't exist. I had to rebuild everything, and it's still hard. And if you work at a big company, you don't know what it's like to try to captivate people and answer the problems, especially if they're not problems no one thought they had. I'm cutting against the grain in this bullshit marketing world where people take everything they see and sell everything. They would sell this video. And I'm flipping it because I think it's dumb, and I think I think there's a market for authenticity and in generosity with information. And one of the main things I say is, look, you can watch as many Bruce Lee movies as you want. That doesn't mean you're going to do karate. So the point is, if you go out there, you listen to me, and you do everything for free, and you do it great, good. I probably should quit then, because what I'm telling you isn't that helpful, or you're just super smart. Great. But what's going to happen is I'm going to tell you how to segment your audience on your email marketing. I'll happily give you the blueprint and draw it like I just did. And if you're listening, you've heard all the notes. You're going to go try to do it and go, oh shit, this is hard. Yeah, it's really hard. I spent my whole life watching people and understanding what makes people tick. I spent my first 8 years of my career in New York working for Procter & Gamble, working for Nielsen, doing the predictive algorithms, doing these exact things. There's a reason why I feel like I'm better than most at this, but I play my strengths. That doesn't mean I'm better at a lot of things, but definitely this. You have to be able to give your information away, and that's my niche. What's yours? Take whatever you like and type in Nick Williams on YouTube, and you'll see my Formula One channel. I didn't know what it was going to be at first, and I was like, I'll do Formula One. I love Formula One. It's no secret. Didn't sleep at all this weekend because every Formula One race is in Europe. It's around the world. It's never in the U.S. There's one in Canada, one in the U.S., but I'm up at 4:30 most Saturdays. It's no fun. I'm up at 5:30. It's a little bit later on Sundays. But I'm basically finding the niche. People in the Formula One world have never seen long form content like this. So I'm doing really well with my channel is because I just sit here and talk about it. And people are always afraid to show their face. And Formula One is so technical and PC, you got to be careful what you say about drive. I don't care about any of that shit. And I think there's some people who don't either. And they're like, finally, man, I just wanted to talk for 20 minutes and blab on about stuff and guess and have silly season and just, you'd be surprised. And you start to learn, and it changed what I do at DeepBridge. I've basically retired this model where it's so stupid, where I think if I make a pretty picture on Instagram, I should get likes. Nope. And actually Instagram's cutting that out because they're getting more and more strict on people who appear to be like bots. So if people are just throwing you likes for reciprocity's sake, that's dead. That's dead. And we're fighting an uphill battle with that. And that's okay because we're prepared to do it. But it's taught me that, God, cut the crap. Make content that people actually give a shit about. And then I bet you people will like it. But you got to pay attention, right? Don't fall off the cliff because it's going to be hard at first. This video, I'm posting it at the end of July. If you're watching this a year later, sure, it's got a lot of views, right? But in August, it's going to have 200 views. I don't care. I have to watch it. Don't fall off the cliff to say, oh, no one likes it. No, you got to give it time, though, because this is going to take a long time. Disrupting this is going to take a long time. But the whole article talks about, Gen Z makes social. My point is Gen Z makes social again. It's because nothing's real anymore. So go take your passion, make a channel, and talk about it. See who watches, see who listens, work on your tags. It's the same with hashtags. That's why Instagram shadow bans hashtags. I bet you didn't think about that. Type in marketing strategy, and there's girls modeling, there's guys on helicopter. None of that's marketing strategy. It's bullshit. And that's why Instagram's like, we're just going to ban anyone who, it's not going to see these people because there's 56 million people who are tagging that, and people are abusing it. So they're like, nah, you're not getting the benefits here. And people don't know that. That's insane that people don't know that. So if you're only using hashtags that are shadow banned because you're full of shit, well, great, because you'll be exposed. But anyone who, if it feels weird to you as you're making your content, your videos, and if you do make a blog, whatever, do that too. Make a Twitter, live tweet stuff, that's fine too. But go do one of those things. Go do one of those things, because it will teach you this idea of, this notion of why, going back to the article, why are people only using Facebook for messaging? It's because Facebook is so crowded by, things that aren't real anymore. It's the same with LinkedIn. What do you even see on LinkedIn anymore? It's supposed to be a place where professionals, congregate and help in a professional way. That's a little bit more, it's a little bit more actionable than what you might see on Facebook. It's business focused and oriented. I actually tell better stories on Instagram because LinkedIn's so crowded with self-aggrandizing things that are only out for other people. It's like people are literally looking for engagement, so they say things that aren't even like real. They're just looking for clicks. And I'm not gonna do that, right? So I'll play on the platforms that I think help the most amount of people, but I'm not gonna pander. But you need to go figure out, what is it like to build something? And if you have a company that you've built, then you know what I'm talking about. So go out there and if you, like I said, if you are literally an entrepreneur building something from scratch and you're in the middle of doing this, good for you. Good for you. If you're not making video, go get on video. If you're not on Twitter, use the platforms appropriately. Go get on Twitter, but do it in the right way. So don't just post your Instagram to Facebook. What I do is I post long, like not quite these videos, but I post long videos and make playlists on Facebook because it can take pretty big videos. LinkedIn can't. LinkedIn, I do presentations where they're slides. They're not allowed to be slides, quote unquote, but it's basically like a carousel. And that works really well. I do the same thing on Instagram, but Instagram makes shorter videos like the ones I do drawing conclusions. So go out there and find your niche and see what it feels like to build something, because I think that's the problem. As we talk about, the last episode and kind of morphing into this one, the really interesting thing I think is going on right now is, yes, some of these things, I really do think, in the cynical view, the authenticity is dying. But it's not the consumer killing it. It's the marketer killing it. Not in a good way. Not in a good way, if I'm not being clear. Like, people are so lazy because they don't want to learn these technologies and they're abusing them. So they're basically just spamming everyone. You have to learn how to, and that's why I want you to do a passion, because you can't spam people with a passion. You can't go out there and start cooking something and spam people to death with it. You just got to make something so good that people want to learn how to do it. I'm starting another channel just for fun, which is, I'm calling it Everyday Sherlock. A stupid name, I know, but I got so sick of no one telling me how to do certain things, like fixing simple things. Like, why don't people talk about how to even make a podcast, which I'll probably put on the DeepBridge site. I made that video. I was so pissed off trying to find something for a client. I just why is no one explaining how to just flat out do it? Or, for instance, connecting all their Amazon Echoes. Like, no one knows how to do that. No one knows how to fix I literally have a Casio watch video where I fix a Casio watch band because there's no one doing it. So I basically just find stuff that no one's doing, and that's why I titled it as such. It's just a random hodgepodge of stuff I try to fix. Again, I'm not trying to monetize a channel, but I want to know. I want to try to fill the void and see what it is, because my F1 channel it has actually a pretty good chance, and you'll find that you'll go, wow, there are some holes in the market, and you take that back to your business and go, okay, what are the holes? Because then it feels real again. Doing my F1 channel, I noticed, okay, no one's doing long form content. I'm going to do that. But I didn't think about that with my business before, and I do this for a living, and I didn't even think that down the middle. And what happens is, if you do think like that, you'll talk yourself out of it. Videos, I'm late, whatever, I'm not going to start. It's because you're afraid you don't have a voice. That's the one thing I work on with most clients. The problem is, and that's why I like writing. I like talking, not just to hear myself talk. I'm actually incredibly introverted, not when it comes to things I care about, though. And I care a great deal about customer insights and growing your business and understanding what's happening with your marketing segmentation and stuff like that. So I'll talk about that all day because I think it's a great conversation to have. But what you have to do is, you've got to find your niche, and you only do that through basically changing the situation, which is exactly what we do in our market research. It's our proprietary model. And obviously, not to get too deep into it, but instead of asking someone, do you like product A? What we do is we reverse engineer what like means to them, apply it to something that matters to them, and then ask them a question which is a pseudo answer to, do you like product A? So if that was confusing, it was a little bit by design because I don't want to reveal that. But at the same time, I want to that is our market research process, which is talk about something not connected. Because when people understand you're in, and we're putting out some content, I'm going to make personally some content because I feel strongly about the movie Inception. So if you're out there listening, go watch the movie Inception. And if you're out there listening and you've seen it, go watch it again. But do it from the perspective of a marketer. And in the movie, they talk about this, which is when you're in the subconscious of the dreamer, and it's about Cobb and Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's basically an expert at extraction, secrets. And what he can do is put someone to sleep and make them think through architects and stuff like that, basically through persuasion, that they're not in a dream. And the deeper he can go, the better. Because he learned if you can make someone think it's their, that's what inception means. You trick someone into thinking that your idea is their idea. That's how you win arguments. But that's how we run research as well. Because if you are talking to someone and they feel you're in, and in the movie you see this a lot, if someone starts to notice you're in their dream, everything gets hostile against you because they're attacking you. Because people don't like you and you're their subconscious. That's why most market research is very bad. Because it's too obvious. You're asking someone an answer and they're already recalculating because they know you're asking and they want to know why. Maybe it's not a big calculation, but it is a shift. So, with all that said, I just wanted to give you some actionable touch points. I wanted to give you some ways that you can apply this. I wanted to give you some ways that I apply this. And I want you to take some homework away to go try this. Document it. How did it go when you made your channel? How did it go when you tried to get an audience? Where did it fail? Reach out to me. Let me know in the comment section, right? Like, this is for debate and conversation if you made it this far, 50 whatever minutes in. So we're going to cut it off there. I'll leave the article. Go check it out. It's from, if you're listening, it's from Marketing Tech News. GenZ, how GenZ changing rule. Wow, that's the slug. I'm not going to read you the slug. The article name is How GenZ is Changing the Rules of Social, Moving from Demographics to True Communities. I love that word, true communities. Marketing is about community now, authenticity and community. Love that. Okay, third thing. Make this one a little bit quicker because this is kind of, just touching all the things we already talked about and one of my favorite articles I've read so far. But it's about how marketing is all about the data. We made this joke. It's not about the money, the Benjamins. It's actually about the data. And you see this in real life warfare, but just in information warfare, in this business to business combat, whoever's got the most information, you're going to beat your competitor because the informed business, the informed brand is the brand with the leg up, is the brand you're going to ultimately win. If you yield your information, if you yield your insights, your data properly, there is no way you can lose if you have it. So let's pull it up here. If you're listening, I'll read you out a couple of these, and if you're watching, I'll leave the link, obviously, like we always do. So, in a recent story, and this is as reported by clickswithaz.com. Not the most, actually, their site's actually not bad, I'm not going to lie to you. But I really came here for the less so the domain name and more so who they interviewed. But it was published in July by Jacqueline Dooley. So, like I said, the case of the Mondays will always be within a week old. So, for the most part, and this is the oldest I've ever gotten a story, is 2 weeks. So for the most part, they'll be topical. But in a recent story, we reviewed research firm Altimeter's report. Sorry if I just looked dumb, but Altimeter's report on digital Darwinism, which revealed that most digitally innovative brands invest heavily in technology. So basically confirming everything we just said. They actually interviewed the former North American EV Executive Vice President and CMO of Nestle Waters, who explained some of the ways Nestle was using technology to better understand their customer journey. And so I won't sit here and rehash this whole article, but what I will say is what they're talking about is empowering the consumer. And you empower the consumer. I'll read just the first little bit, actually. So millennials and centennials, people in parentheses, people born 1994 to 2010, expect brands to be relevant across all touch points, but are also focused on the community and the planet, etc. These expectations are rising to a level that is tough to meet. Marketers should think about the consumer experience as an integrated view that covers all touch points, as well as the role and relevance of each touch point. So that's basically describing omnichannel marketing in an eloquent, long-form sentence. So omnichannel marketing is insanely valuable, but I think, again, because of the lack of understanding of technology and the use cases in which marketing technology can disrupt or basically push your agenda and help your strategy, because people don't understand the marketing technology that goes into these different tactical choices, omnichannel marketing, from what the customer and the consumer desire, we're lacking. And I think a lot of people notice that is if one of the most interesting things I talk about with brands, and I show brands in my clients, is when I always ask them, tell me the journey. And depending on the client, I may not even say that word, but I always start with a simple exercise, and you can take this if you want. I'll give you the treat and the bonus here at the end if you stuck around this long. Clear a wall in your office, in your room, if you work from home, if you work in I don't give a shit, a 30,000 foot office, I don't care. Find one. Find a room and find your smartest, honest people from all levels of the organization. Could be a team of 5, could be a team of 50, could be, well, no, that's too much, a team of 10 or a team of 2. Doesn't matter. Just get people you trust and will be honest. Map out on the wall. Number 1, how does your consumer find you? Number 2, what did they do next? Number 3, what's the cycle like? What's the prototypical quintessential cycle like for that ideal consumer? We want to rehash ideal consumer. We've done it too many times. I've done it so many times. So map out your ideal, whatever, give them a name. You don't have to make a whole psychographic profile of your ideal consumer. Name them. Ask yourself the questions I just said. What's the ideal journey? How do they get to your product? And if you're sitting around, I don't know, that's the problem, right? So my point is to illustrate that a lot of people don't actually know how the consumer gets there. But let's say you're out there like, Nick, I know all this. Great. Now take each point and we're going to challenge it, though. What's the research cycle? So like I said, one of my favorite clients is because it's microblading. It's so hard. It's so difficult. And would not advise any consultant out there to take a microblading client because it's highly confusing. It's very technical. It's expensive, and it's still new. And you've got to convince people. It's something that people, it's your eyebrows. You already have eyebrows for the most part. There's an emotional play here. It's a nice to have. It's a convenience. It's expensive enough in which you have to pick between maybe priorities. So it's very difficult. But what I had to explain to this person, my client was like, "Oh, they go out and they Google it and then they purchase." No, they don't. I ran market this person was very wise and got some market research from us, and we basically scoped it out to show them that through some qualitative research, through the primary research process that we've developed, we learned that about the average time that people researched this service was about 8 months. That blew their mind. And I think it would still be an elongated research process, but it's because people they don't understand that the customer, every time the customer doesn't have their question answered, it resets. And it actually emboldens their oftentimes wrong opinions on things. If you give the customer a choice to make up their mind on something, if you don't have the answer, do you trust them to answer it correctly? Map it out on the wall, map out your journey. And then at each stage, okay, well, instead of going, they look at Google, how many times are they searching on Google? How many touch points does it take before they contact you? What's your drop-off rate? If 10 people, basically you could run a Facebook ad, and maybe I'll do that soon, but make sure to check out Drawing Conclusions this whole week because we've got three different episodes I'll be drawing this week. So one of them will be about this, but if you basically just run a cheap ad, you don't have to put a lot of money into it, but it will give you some of these answers. If you run an ad, you'll see how many people use your click-through rate as a pseudo answer to this question. if you put out 1,000 impressions and your click-through rate is 30, you know that you're at 3%, right? So the industry average, depending on what you're doing and what you're selling, that's about right. But there's a reason why our clients at DeepBridge get double digits. It's not because there's some trick. It's because we understand to a great degree what the consumer wants. So map it out. How many times are they looking at your website 10 times? So if 1,000 people looked at your website, how many are purchasing? Do a waterfall. How many are buying your stuff on on exposure 1? How many are buying on exposure 2? How many are buying on exposure 3? And so I'll draw this one if you can. So that's your takeaway. So go ahead and that's your actionable takeaway. Map that out on the wall. See how close your activities are. Do you understand your consumer? Can you, first of all, answer the question? Secondly, if you can answer that question and you think you're right, your content better reflect that, right? Like if you've got 10 people who are coming to your website and you're telling me, if you tell me 6 people purchased right there, you're a liar or you're dumb or you're in denial. That's not true. That's not true. They're not. They're probably coming back at the end. Like I said, the industry average is 5 to 7 times exposure, depending on, obviously there's a lot of variables, right? But give me some rope, it's 5 to 7. That means it takes people 5 to 7 times exposures. It doesn't mean blog exposures. It could be mixed media. Again, why I do this. I make short form videos. I make long form videos. I make very long form content. I make high level content. This is going to go over 70%. 70% of my ideal customer set. And my ideal customer is already the sophisticated, eloquent CMO of a company, $1 million in revenue with 50 plus, 1 million to 10 million with 50 plus employees up to 250. So again, we have a very, very specific idea of, depending on what we're working on and what service, market research, whether it's market research or our email course, we have very specific people picked out, but this is going to go over my most eloquent consumer's head 70% of the time. You have to know that, because if you don't know that, and you're creating content that doesn't reflect that, light your time on fire and your money, because you're wasting your time. You're actually creating negative brand equity. The problem with today is we've created an environment in which people have abused, like we've talked about, abused the technology that people don't want to be burned by companies. They don't want their time wasted, and they hate their time wasted. If they're going to spend time listening to this podcast, you better give them things to go do. That's why I'm making it a video podcast, so I can draw. That's why I'm trying not to hide the ball and bury the lead. I'm trying to tell you everything I know and that I would do. But if you are not doing that and you're actually just ignoring it, people get pissed off when you send them shitty email sequences that don't matter. And not only is it like in your head, if you're going, and this is what I notice, people, when I respond to these people that send me these LinkedIn messages, they're like, oh, it's a numbers game. No, it's not a numbers game. That's idiotic. And if you want to say it's a number game, you need to be calculating how many people are they telling? The stat I was reading is 90% of people who have a negative experience don't actually say it. So my mom, when I was a kid, used to always tell me, like, I don't know why, she's just terrorizing me, but if you see one spider, there's probably 100, right? And it's true. That is a true statement. If one accidentally popped out, like, it's not their nature, a spider's nature, to be seen by people. That's the point, right? Is to be incognito. They don't want to be seen. So if one got seen and you think there's one, no. If there's one that's that dumb, that just fell outside the statistical norm. That'd be within variance, right? So if spiders' innate nature are not to be seen, and again, I'm a little kid working this out, like, why did my mom say that? But I started to understand that's what she was trying to say. There's a 1% chance you'll see a spider. Like, okay, well, if you see one, there's 100 somewhere. There's, it's 90, whatever. I'm just making the data up, but you get what my point is. So if you are telling people these stories that they don't care about and they don't matter, and they're, it's not a numbers game, because you need to bake in how many people are hating you, just not telling you. All those non-responses, it's a good chance that those aren't just non-responses. If someone says, oh, like this person reached out to me, they're going to be like, yeah, they're annoying. They're really annoying. Like, that's what they say. And then that person tells people. And then if you're big enough, that is horrible. It's the MoviePass effect. I don't think I can create any more content on MoviePass. I've got more than 10,000 words on the blog, but it's such a great example of, if you don't give a shit the market will penalize you and absolutely obliterate you and annihilate you, and they have. Don't care the date. If they're even a company not being allegedly being investigated, go look at on Twitter. Go look at MoviePass. If you don't even know what that is, that'd be hilarious. But it's like basically a MoviePass card that tried to disrupt Cinemark and AMC's and blah 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 blah. So go look at their Twitter and look at their recent tweet. Any tweet they have is blasted by negativity. Doesn't matter. This is so old. I was like customer like 300. Okay, I was in really early. I canceled my car over 2 years ago, and I still go check the Twitter because it's so funny. Like it is funny. If you're gonna do that to consumers, you got what you're coming for, because they screwed people over, and now they just act like they didn't do it. And it's like, that's not how you change minds and captivate hearts. So you cannot ignore this. And I feel so strongly. That's why I'm trying to tell these stories and analogies to make it hit home. Stop downplaying this laziness that you may or may not have by sending these. If you're not investing in ways to be authentic, your consumer will know. Just because, if you get a post that doesn't have as many likes, comments, etc., you've got to switch your brain to think, well, if they didn't like it, maybe they hate it. What about this? And you need to change how you are grading yourself in the work you're doing. So this article reveals this article basically reveals everything we've been talking about this entire time. But when you think of empowering the consumer, so right, I was talking about the former CMO of Nestle Waters, how the clicks.com, actually their H2 header is the empowered consumer, and it's all about the data, because it really is. Your goal, such a good way to put it, your goal should be to empower the consumer to have a better life, to make a better choice, you should be making things easier for them. You should not be worried about, like, your end all be all first objective is to make the sale. Yes, that's your overarching point, but that even right there, that exposed the fact that not every, if you map, like we talked about, if you do what I just said and map your journey, you should know that the first touch point is not time to make a sale. And in fact, if you're trying to make a sale, they're walking away. No one wants to be sold. And why would I buy anything from you? I don't know you. It'd be like in this podcast, it was like, all right, go buy my course. No, I don't want you to, first of all, because you won't get it. And my retention rate would be, my recidivism, I'd have so many bad metrics. If I just asked everyone to do everything, my conversion rate would be in the toilet. That would be draining on me emotionally. It's why content's so hard. But for DeepBridge, for our clients, for anyone that works with us, it's not hard. It's just specific. It's just very finicky. You've got to pay attention, and you've got to be responsible. And then it's fun. You're gaming things. Basically, instead of going, what's our conversion rate? Gosh, it's 10%. How can we convert so high that people are like, what the hell? How do you make such an unbelievable offer? And Russell Brunson does a really good job of this, to make an irresistible offer. The word offer. If that's a foreign concept to you in your marketing, you got to work on it. What is your offer? You're never selling, people always say, well, you're selling, and I'm guilty of this too. You're selling emotions and results. Kinda. It's not that simple, but kinda. Or people always say, like, put your features second. No, or don't, focus on value, not your features. That's kind of true. Not really, though. If it's zero sum, again, if it's binary, you got to pick your value or your features of your product. This battery lasts 12 hours. Okay, well, don't talk about the 12-hour battery life. Talk about what the 12-hour battery life does for the consumer. We talked about that last podcast. But that doesn't mean don't talk about the battery life, because that's a secondary, that shortens the sales cycle. It answers objections. And the more, I call it silent objection answering. The more objections you can answer silently. So you answer the main priority, H1, whatever you want to call it. You answer number one need of the consumer with your value proposition. That should be your goal. But then it should be, I do this, my product does this, through that, buy this. Not, here you go, better, your phone lasts longer so you can talk to your friends. It should be how you did it, because if you're answering the main objective, okay, you make something better in their life, before they can even say how, like, how do you do that? And if you don't have an answer, they're going to get, okay, you're just making it up. You leave the door open. But if you talk about your features too, if you say, here's how we did it, here's why we did it, then all of a sudden you're answering key objections along with delivering on the value proposition. So empowering the consumer, and you can empower the consumer using the technology. So this gentleman in this interview talks about some of his experience at Nestle, and he says the biggest game changer for us has been the availability of data. And so, this kind of goes on what I was saying earlier, but I'll draw it out one more time before we end. So if you are going, Nick, I don't really know how to do this. Okay, so let's go back to content, because again, it's the easiest and it's the it's the quickest way to kind of express what I'm talking about. So if you've got your content funnel, and if you're listening, I'll go ahead and explain it too. So you should be drawing something, and you can do it in your head. You can just be thinking about it. But your content funnel is how you filter interested and qualified consumers down through a conversion. And again, doing this is why the theme of this podcast is technology, how it enables marketing and conversion. But technology makes this easy because it does it at scale, and it gives you information and feedback, and data is king, right? So it's all about the data, not the Benjamin. So that's what we're talking about in this segment. So in this drawing, I've got a funnel, and if you're listening, draw the funnel in your head. This funnel, how it's basically on the axis at the top, should be this should be what is easier to consume. And I mean, why I'm kind of hesitating there is because it's not necessarily like what's like the dumbed down version. That's not it. It's what if you put some content in front of a consumer. Basically, like, I wouldn't explain what psychographic segmentation is to someone who's like they'd walk away and be like, what the hell? Okay, I'm out, right? I wouldn't put this podcast in front of someone who wasn't really sure about, business growth. I would put something else. I'd put like a 10-minute video where it's super graphic heavy, and it basically explains at a high level, well, you've got problems and here are your problems. I'd start there. So at the top of your funnel should be, what are the things that would be what's the highest propensity to be consumed by the most amount of ideal consumers, the most amount of qualified consumers, not any consumer. Any consumer will watch a 60-second video, but that may not be the best choice for you. So as you're drawing this in your head, if you're watching me draw this could be and this is why, if you look at above the fold on so many websites, this could be a 3-minute video. And this could be talking about like your overarching value proposition as a company, right? Because everyone's going to watch that probably. But you want to, in this whole idea of a funnel, it's squeezing every funnel. If you're listening to this, you're picturing the funnel I drew probably. But it squeezes and it gets tighter and tighter. And there's a reason that the funnel does that. It's not like that's the idea of the funnel. That's the definition of it. And how it applies to you is, if you're not doing this, it's because that's why you're doing this wrong. What you should be doing is filtering and qualifying. So there should be some natural fallout. So if you took, again, let's put real numbers on this, 100 people, and you put them in this first stage 1, this 3-minute video. So this is stage 1. Sorry for this drawing. If you're listening, you're welcome, because you're not getting it. But stage 2, so you got 100 people, and then in the next phase, you had a 50 dropout. So 50 people are going to check out this stage 2, which stage 2 is a 1,000-word blog article. And again, this is all done while you sleep. This is done at scale through automation. So you should be linking them to content and through information that makes sense to them. Now, 50 fallout, that's for another day, but watch that number, right? Maybe that's too much, maybe that's not enough. So that's just important to note, because you want to maximize basically, you want to keep it close as possible to that starting number. You want to keep your retention as high as possible all the way through your sales process, because that increases, again, the propensity to convert, and ultimately your conversion rate as it's related to a monetary value is going to go up. So you got 50 people in stage 2, which is 1,000 word, and then it should get more and more difficult to consume, but not for the sake of difficultiness, the difficulty to consume. It should be difficult to consume because it's deeper and deeper content. So I make even deeper content that's similar, to what I'm doing right now. Like, this is not even touching the surface on some of these dynamics and some of the models I've built out in terms of how you persuade people. This psychographic segmentation, that's a deeper model, and that would be in stage 3. So I'm breaking the funnel as you listen into thirds. And so I went from 100 people that watch a 3-minute video, that would probably happen. And then I'd probably lose 50 people to read 1,000 words. I could write 1,000 words in an hour. Some people don't like writing, but that's why I can do better at scale here, is because I like that. So you want to play your strengths, keep that in mind. But 50 people dropped out. Okay, that would be awesome if I got those numbers, first of all. But from the 1,000 word blog, the third step is going to be, okay, I'm going to give you a free course, but the free course ain't no cakewalk, right? So if you're taking this, you're going to be confused and frustrated. I'm going to walk you through the whole thing, not confused because you don't know what to do, but this is all new. It's going to be challenging and difficult, but I promise you'll walk away a smarter marketer, and in most situations, the smartest person in the room when it comes to your niche. And that's what you want. And if you don't want it, I don't want to work with you. That's not my qualified buyer wants to be great at what they do. And what they do is understand people, captivate hearts, and change minds. That's what I want. That's the consumer I want to win there. I play my strengths because that's the only thing that makes sense, and that's what you should be doing too. So you qualify. I get 10 people to take that free course. Again, I hate that word because it's so abused, but sorry, right? Like a doctor, but it says free course. So 10 people. And then now it's time to convert. Right? The theory of reciprocity kicks in. I gave you something. Now I want you to invest back into my business so I can invest back into you and keep our doors open. I want to make sure that, you put skin in the game and money on the line, because that's when people care the most. I gave you something free on purpose because I needed to get your feet wet and make sure this is something you'd be interested in. Now it's time to get for real. Not because I want your money, but because I want to be able to do this for you, and it's not free. But more importantly, people care more when they put skin in the game. And I need to know you're committed, because that's the only way you do this. And if I get 5 people out of those 100, that is basically my business model. I don't keep, this is my premier level clients. I never keep more than 5, because I know that's the amount of time it takes for me to appropriately manage those people. I've turned down a lot of money to work with different agencies, to work with different entrepreneurs, to work with high net worth people, to work with brand new people out of college that are really committed to invest. I can't work with everyone, but I can cap that and open it up every quarter, and basically I kind of pick and choose. It's a two-way street though. That's why I put out content, because I don't work well with everyone. I'm not gonna hold your hand through certain things. I'm gonna challenge you, I'm not gonna leave you out to dry. But if you ask me a question, I'm gonna make sure you answered, and I'm gonna make sure your question's wrong, so we can talk about that first. You've got to come with an intelligent question so we can advance the conversation. So sometimes I wouldn't answer that question, but not because I don't want to. It's because I have to rewire your brain. If you're a brander, a CMO, I have to rewire you to go and answer the hairy questions that you're not used to saying. God, why does no one answer that? That's the hardest thing in the world to teach, and I have to do that through very specific methods. So if I have 5 people, that's a lot of my time. It's a lot of understanding 5 different consumer types. In most cases, each client has multiple consumer segmentation models I need to be putting into place, multiple barriers I need to break down, multiple preconceived notions I need to be learning about and teaching an organization, and changing internal learning structure, but also teaching them about their external client consumer so we can all convert together. I've got to do it 5 times. It's a lot, right? Like, I don't just send you an email once every whatever and run ads. I never do that. I never just run ads, because I can't run ads to something I don't know. That's the exact thing I push, so why would I do it? So at 5 people, that's stage 4, and that's my real learning experience. So I use things like that's my learning experience, or that's more of the typical, prototypical, engagement. So if you're listening, hopefully that made sense. Go ahead and just refer to the video because it's going to be helpful. But I'm going to go ahead in there because I literally could talk about this all day long. But I want to stop there and I want to keep this as actionable as humanly possible. I tried to do 3 segments in which you can take multiple things. But like we talked about, the 3 articles, which I'll link to: McDonald's, Uber, Johnson & Johnson go on their marketing hiatus, how Gen Z is making social, and how marketing is all about the data. So I'm Nick Williams, host of Case of the Mondays. If you are still here, I really appreciate it. And more so, it's a two-way street. We're doing each other favors. You're checking out my content that helps in the algorithms. Like it, share it, comment on it. We're just about done. I feel like I can plug this now, but we're just about done with the website. And we're, like I said, we practice what we preach. It'll be a freemium model. So there'll be a lot of things that are just tucked away. There's a lot of stuff I can't put on YouTube. I don't want to put on YouTube. Not that I can't. I don't want to. I want you to come to the site and I want you to be for real. And I want you to be a part of the ecosystem that is DeepBridge Consulting, because there's so much I want to give to you. But to do that, I got to know you're for real. And so that's why we're moving things over to the DeepBridge site. It'll be free, but there's a certain level that's free. Then we've got 3 different layers. And again, that's to weed out the people who aren't for real, because I don't want to work with anyone who's not for real. And you don't want to work damn sure with someone who's not going to step up to the plate and deliver. And it's a two-way street. So that's what I'm bringing to you. And if you're interested in that, cool. And if not, cool. But share it, like it, and more than anything, give me feedback, though. So thanks for checking this out, guys. This is Case of the Mondays. Hopefully, this has got you worked up. I know I'm sweaty. I know I'm ready to go. So this is just a normal day, though. This is stuff I like talking about, and hopefully you like listening to me rant about. So, and you took stuff to learn from it. So thanks for checking this out, guys. Case of the Mondays, Nick Williams, DeepBridgeConsulting.com. We also have actionable audio, serious profit, serious marketers as a podcast. But we'll see you guys next Monday, but hopefully across other platforms, all the content I'm making you every single day, every single hour, something's getting better. Thank you.